on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day, and there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you and your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics. And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic, it was horrible, we didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about, don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families, every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And, I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9% of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school And we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please,
For
and then
30
I have a
seconds.
question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that it came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that it came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
So there was a way to
Fact is
contain
that
it then.
When we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry, the warm weather. Don't worry, maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing, you're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even, and because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say
did.
Sugar
You certainly did.
I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the nation, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social distancing, do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums, do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it
Perfect
often.
segue into stimulus.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we can open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving.
Shouldn't the government offer help?
Take a look
Vice
at what
President
New
Biden.
York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you
about-
say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed. And they're getting killed.
All states he
financially.
needs to win, by the
We
way.
can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow
Very
up with you before
interesting.
we move
Very
on to
interesting
our
he
next
brought
section.
those
President
states
Trump,
up.
this week
I
you
wonder
called
why.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us, Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing, and a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to
Wall Street
move on.
one, I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Don't tell me about Wall Street.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term?
He's going to bring up Hunter Biden.
2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe
It's
got
amazing he
$3.5 million
baited him
from
to
Russia,
do it.
and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million, and you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get 3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that. And through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said, the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO. You know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well.
This is a lose-lose argument no matter what.
During you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of
I think Americans don't give a shit about
Ukraine. You handed it to
arming
them,
Ukrainians.
but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond. 30 seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants.
Nice.
Under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it. And it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell
told
when
you
you
that.
could release
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this, but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them to the American people?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because I have a lot of people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
Very quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, I mean, your brother made money in Iraq. Millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
More taxes in China than the United States from 2010 to 2015.
Didn't have a job for a long time.
That's the easy line.
Was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy
I'm going to let the Vice President respond to that quickly, and then I need to
dishonest.
get to a question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is, everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money
President
every
Trump,
place
thank
he
you.
goes.
We do need to move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay. Very quickly, and then
His
we're
son
going to move on to North
with $1.5
Korea.
billion from China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
Email.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what
No, but wait a
specifically are
minute.
you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers. because
Taxpayers'
China,
money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is. It's called China. China paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about
I'm not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got
President
elected.
Let's
get off the subject of
Oh, he's trying
China.
to
Let's
do-
talk around sitting
he's trying to
around
do
the table.
2016.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next one.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, millions of people would be dead right now.
President
we
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank
relationship.
you. Vice President Biden, to you. North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat right
Because
now?
I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea. I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
Kristen, they tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
got to
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, 'cause
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
We have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you. We're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And
let's
it didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk about
He left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, so
They left me a
comparison.
mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if you
on so
remember
we
the
can get
first
to all
2 or
of
3
other
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country had.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time.
If Biden
and I
said
think
show
we're
your
going to
plan
win the
right
House,
now,
okay?
it would be
You'll see,
over.
But I think we're going to win the House.
I mean, it's already over, but
come up with
you
a
know,
better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building
get
on
muted again in the
Obamacare. So
end?
my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't. Not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response to them?
I say it's ridiculous. It's like saying that, the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance your company's gone under? We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump,
Excuse me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right?
Because of the
Less than
Republicans,
4
they
years
did
ago.
actually try to push the
He didn't
public
do
option.
anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine,
What?
and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it.
Insane.
The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like he went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking. And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way.
But somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
he goes for a year. There will be no fracking. There will be no petroleum.
We have a number of topics we're
No,
going to
but
get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
And we're going to get to. We're going to get to.
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare.
Democrats are
Totally
responsible for
and
this.
destroying your Social
Sorry.
Security, and this whole
It's the
country
truth.
will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it. in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They want to make it work.
Okay,
It
let's let
was
Vice President
impossible
Biden
to work.
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against.
Well, I
and the
die.
idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to
President,
hurt
and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that when they
Mr.
announced
President, I have to
last
move on
week,
to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going to have
will
time to
boom
talk about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
The biggest
move on to the
analysts are
next
saying that.
question.
Let me respond.
Very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol
401ks,
Hill. We're going to
Kristen,
move on, gentlemen.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna
People's
move on.
stock are through the roof.
All right.
And he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories.
What?
On a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President,
The Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
let me follow up
Yes.
with you, Vice President.
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President
Shut up,
Biden a
moderator,
question.
let him
You are the
go.
leader of the
Let the old
Democratic
man
Party.
speak.
Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed
Fuck
this act
you!
all the way
Fuck
back in the
you!
beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt.
He
Come on.
laughed.
What's the matter
The
with
bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high-crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
By the
I
way,
want
if
to.
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to get
said we
your
have to help
reaction.
our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very recently.
We have to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
in a
what I really like,
administration?
In a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border. At least 4,000 kids.
Muscular approach to a different policy position for the first time.
But the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through merit.
But how will you reunite these kids with their families,
Let me just tell you,
Mr. President?
they built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them, and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you have a plan to reunite the kids?
Yes, we're working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500+ kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a question.
They did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
to that? They did it. We changed.
Did not
They built the cages. Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what we're talking about.
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They
10
went down.
seconds,
We
and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of.
Oh,
They're in
that's
facilities
not
that
a
were
good
so
look,
clean
Trump.
Some
and
of them
gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy, and they want to do that, is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, oh, no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed without having
had 4
a
years?
specific.
God.
We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing.
True.
This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case.
The numbers are on
Perry
Joe's
Mason.
side.
We're going to give you a court case.
He's right.
When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe.
Overwhelming
They
majority
never come back.
show up to their court
Only the
cases.
really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know
section.
the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about
Let's
it
move
anymore.
on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk
Damn.
about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot
Mortar
about
in
this.
chief.
She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has
wasn't
done
even
more
Biden, it
for
was
the
Hillary
black
defending the
community
crime bill,
than
but
Donald
still.
Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal
I think he
justice
said something pretty
reform.
close to that, if he didn't say
Obama
that.
and
He did.
Joe didn't do it.
He didn't just use that
I don't
exact
even think they
verbiage,
tried
though.
because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year.
Chance that he would bring up Tim
because
Scott
President
in his
Obama
answer
would never
close
give them
to 100%.
long-term funding, and I did. 10-year
I don't even remember the
long-term
question.
funding, and I gave them more money than
It was
they asked
about
for because they
criminal
said, I
justice.
think
It was
you need
about
more. And I
police
said, the only bad part about this is
attacking
I may never
I was being
see them
sarcastic.
black
because
people.
I got very friendly
No, I
with
see-
them,
I see it on
and
screen.
they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges.
Well, that's right.
and
They got the
universities.
question.
Okay,
That's very
and we're
helpful.
going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
President.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure
hate how close our
that they got the
parties
death
are
penalty.
aligned on policy.
None of them were guilty of what the crime
Both historically
of the crimes
and
they
right now.
suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he
Makes me
commuted 20
sad.
people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you do it? You were vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago, and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up
If this stuff is
questions.
true about Russia, Ukraine,
Biden known as a
China,
big truth
other
teller?
countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
Take a look
President
at the
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue
Excuse
of
me,
race. We're
take a
talking
look
about
at
the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have
just
to respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
gotta
exactly
be-
what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This
was
is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have
okay?
to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue
Boy,
on the
boy.
issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't
by
know.
the
I mean, I don't know
videos?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say.
I told
They can
you
say
this would be
anything.
hitting
I mean,
different
they can say anything.
if it weren't for the protests.
It makes
He
me
would
sad
100% be running
because
with this.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so
Stop.
dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
3
Okay,
minutes
Vice
ago, he
President
said
Biden, let me ask you very
undocumented
quickly, and then I have
immigrants
a
that show
follow-up
up to
question
court
for you.
are
Abraham
lowest of the
Lincoln
low
here is one of the
IQ.
most racist presidents
Yep.
we've had in modern history.
3 minutes ago, he said
pours
that.
fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told him to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Damn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds
Need
to
some
respond, and I have a
coffee, dude.
follow-up.
He made a reference
He's
to Abraham
slurring.
Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham
No,
Lincoln.
where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody
Yeah,
done
fuck
what
Lyndon
I've
B.
done for the black
Johnson.
community.
And I'm
I
saying-
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
Tens of thousands of black men, mostly in jail.
All right, let me,
And you know what?
let me
they
ask
remember
Vice
it
President
because if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime
Okay.
bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change this since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to the drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
didn't get
38,000.
anything
We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the
Those numbers are
legislation
really low,
saying
by the way.
We could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing.
Kind of a reminder
how
how
conducting
shitty the
themselves.
Obama
I
administration
could go on,
was.
but we began the
To me, at
process.
least.
We began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens
Because-
of thousands of
Just say because of
mostly
Republicans,
black
you
young
old
men in
fuck.
prison. Now you're
Because
saying you're
your
gonna
psychotic
you're gonna
party
undo
stopped
that.
everything.
Why didn't you get it done? You had 8
I don't
years with
understand why they
Obama.
never do this. Why
You know
won't the
Joe?
Democrats ever
Because
say
you're
this?
all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress.
Thank you. Thank
Chance-
you.
Well,
Okay.
you got to talk them into it, Joe.
All right.
You got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did
we're
what we
running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. Wow. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? we have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change and climate warming, global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit emissions, will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
Today came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate.
Don't
and
fucking
they're all
do it.
hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. Right. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President respond, and we're running out of time, and we have a lot more questions to get to.
Country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queens.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, $45, $50 an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump, please
We
respond, and then I have some follow-up.
We are energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist who said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So
False.
It's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right,
now,
let me let me allow
fracking.
Vice President Biden to respond.
I never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's
it,
flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over
Adrenochrome is
time
wearing off
is
a little
make
bit.
sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then we have.
He was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking and/or oil on federal land.
Let me ask this final question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it. And I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. Okay. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
Right.
And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there were first frost to drive me to school, turning the windshield wiper,
still not do anything about it.
That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer.
Democrats are the best at acknowledging the problems and then not doing anything about it.
It matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil
By
industry?
the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind. And that's maybe the biggest statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because basically what he's saying is he is going to destroy the oil industry. Okay. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
gonna get
question
China
to both
to do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to
Eat
make
shit
our
and
country totally successful, as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
We need to talk
I
about
will
that thing in the
say-
middle, by the way.
I'm an American president.
It's so
I represent
fucking
all of you, whether you voted for me or
American,
against
dude.
me.
Harley
And
Davidson.
I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
So how did that compare to the last one, man? Because I didn't watch the full
No,
debate.
this was incredible. This was actually very, very good. I can't, like, look, these debates don't mean shit, okay? If we're being honest, it literally is just meaningless, okay? The numbers are not close enough. There isn't even enough evidence that, like, debates matter unless there's, like, something truly unique that happens in a debate, even historically. It's just for our side and their side to duke it out, you know what I mean? And then it's just team sports. Like, that's all that this is for. And it's for political consumption. It's so that, like, political the media industrial complex makes money. And I am myself, I'm a part of this. There's currently 116,000 people in here, so you know, I'm certainly a part of that industry as well now. But it was a lot better than I expected. Joe Biden, his adrenochrome was wearing off a little bit towards the end, but he really came out of the gate swinging, which is really important because at least most people pay attention historically to the first.
Do that.
Because
People
the
pay
oil
attention to
industry
the first
pollutes.
couple of to the first like 15 30 minutes of a debate more than any other point of the debate. People start tuning out after like the first 30 minutes. So it is he hit the high notes early on. It was really good. Knocked it out of the park, especially with the COVID recovery. So that was huge. That was really, really important. And I think he did really well. He certainly went above and beyond. He certainly did better than my expectations of him, if we're being honest. What about you guys?
I would go far to say he did better than his the first debate that we had. I thought he did fantastic, and want to echo what you said. I think he hit all the high points and had a lot of good zingers. What surprised me the most, though, is the fact that Trump came in and wasn't the Trump that we expected him to be in a way. It's almost like he yielded the advice of some of his advisors. He was a lot more calm. Maybe that was just the fact that that they muted him and it didn't allow him to interrupt as much. But I don't know if that necessarily plays very well with his base. But it certainly was a better performance from both of them, actually, I think.
No, I think he did do very well. I think Trump did very well as well. I will admit. You're right. He dialed it back. He postured decently. But again, and I can't stress this enough, it doesn't matter. Like, it literally does not matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, what do you guys think? Let's
Well,
hear
let me say this real quick. I think the numbers that will come in will perfectly mirror what the actual support is for each candidate. Everyone's guy will say that their guy won. I have to jump off for a second. I'm taping. I'll stick around and I'll come back later. We're taping Deconstructed tonight. So
Ooh, nice.
I got to go interview Crystal Ball real quick. We're gonna have her breaking
cool.
it down, and I'll even let you know what her take is.
No, it's cool, Ryan. Like, you don't have to invite me onto your really super popular podcast ever. Like, you can just go tape it with Crystal Ball.
Our producer has been recording you the whole time, and he's just gonna throw in your gems. So
okay, cool.
You're getting on there whether you like it or not.
All right, I'll allow it.
Did he catch any of my gems?
Well, we haven't talked as much yet. Deconstructed with Austin show, Mr. Show.
Yeah. All right, I'll be right back.
All right, cool. Okay, so Ryan, you can just come back in anytime you want, as long as you just get into the chat and turn on your camera.
And if you want to do the podcast for real, you should do that.
Yeah, no, I'm super down.
Excellent.
Okay. And I was gonna bring in Trihex as well in a second, but let's continue. Ryan, are you leaving right now? Like right this moment? Oh, he already muted.
Yeah. I'll just turn off my camera. I'll stick around.
All right, perfect. So, Osita, what do you think? What are your takes on what you saw tonight?
Yeah, well, I basically agree with you about debates overall. I mean, I think we have a lot of evidence from political science that they don't independently matter much to the outcome. They really matter when there's something extraordinary that happens. Like when somebody completely tanks on stage, maybe that hurts them a bit. But I don't think we saw anything like that tonight. I think that Biden did a good job, just that's my perspective. The thing that's hard about talking about debates is like I can sit here and say to you, well, I thought that Biden did well for X, Y, and Z reasons. It doesn't really matter. What matters is like what normal people who don't really follow politics think. But from my perspective, I thought that Biden did a good job repelling the attacks about the laptop and Ukraine and all that bullshit, talking about the impact of coronavirus, pushing back on Trump and the race stuff. I didn't expect him to bring up like the Central Park 5 in response to Trump mentioning the predators thing. I don't know that that's been a major subject of the general election thus far, but I think it's important that when Trump says, well, I did the first step back and all this stuff, that somebody mentioned at some point that he called for innocent people to be executed back in late 80s, early 90s in New York City. And that's what his actual feelings about crime are. And that's what shaped him as a political figure. So I thought it was good that Biden hit back on that. That last exchange, that really long sort of exchange they had on climate policy, I think might be the longest exchange we've seen in a debate about climate change and what ought to be done. But when Biden started talking about frontline communities and his experience growing up in Delaware, I thought that was really interesting and not something I'd heard from him before. Like you said, Hasan, like Democrats are very good at identifying the problems and talking poignantly about them and then not doing the things that would actually be required to actually solve them and address them. I thought that he did, lay out that issue in new way for a general election campaign. So I thought that was good. I thought that what Trump basically needed to do, as opposed to what he did in the last debate, was this time around look like a normal candidate. I think that the rules helped him. Whether or not he liked them, they actually helped him come across as a sane person, or more of a sane person. I think he had advisors in his ear before this debate telling him that he needed to calm down, and he did that. So I think those are the main things he had to accomplish, and we'll see in the numbers whether or not any of this moved anything. But I think both of them had pretty strong performances. Neither of them are really hurt by anything. If there's anything that's going to hurt Trump, it might be that part where they were talking about immigration.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the low IQ people who I didn't actually follow everything that he was saying, but he said like there's some segment of the population that was low IQ, and that's going to be replayed probably.
Yeah, so I follow Donald Trump's speeches obsessively here in this broadcast. Like, I'm very familiar with what he says. I've seen him test that bit out before. What he's simply stating is that, and I've heard him say this before, I think like in one or two other rallies where he tested it out. So what he's saying is the majority of immigrants that are caught or apprehended in the catch and release programs under Obama never showed up to court, and the ones that do end up showing up to court are actually really dumb. And what he was trying to say is they're really dumb for showing up to court. Like, why the fuck would you do that? It's a classic Trumpism, but the way that he said it this time with the low IQ thing will absolutely be weaponized against him, and it should be, by the way. He is a racist piece of shit. And also, more importantly than that, he's also fucking wrong. The numbers are not on his side, and the catch and release program is a very successful one. And that the majority of immigrants, according to numerous studies, if you don't want to trust like the study that Vox put up or immigration lawyers have put up, it ranges from 75% to 99% of immigrants that get apprehended and are sent a court date show up to that court date because they know that this is the only opportunity they have to actually seek asylum. So it's ridiculous that Trump claims that none of them show up. And it's also even more ridiculous that he then further claims that the ones that do show up are low IQ, lowest of the IQ. There was another moment there, of course, with immigration. I think immigration was one of the few instances, along with raising the minimum wage, where Joe Biden very clearly showed that he was different than Donald Trump. And I love that. I'm so desperate for any sort of polarization that will galvanize people like myself. Even if I don't fucking believe that Joe Biden has the energy or the momentum or the interest to follow through on any of the things that he claims he's going to do, I just want to hear it from him at this point. And I can't even hear it from him, and I haven't heard it from him for a very long time. So it's always good. And I think it's a successful strategy to win elections when you actually draw battle lines. And it's something that I'm very frustrated that Democrats don't do. But as far as immigration policy goes, I think he did a decent job defending the previous administration's immigration policies, even though it was pretty fucking brutal. 3 million immigrants deported. And of course, Obama year over year deported more undocumented immigrants than Donald Trump did, actually, as a matter of fact, even though Donald Trump was significantly more brutal than Barack Obama and has been significantly more brutal. Barack Obama did still deport more immigrants, and he did build the cages. That is a fucking fact.
And there was this other thing. My whole feed was like weird in this one section. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. But I saw people on Twitter were saying that there's a part where they were talking about the family separations, and Biden talked about the 520 or 40. I can't remember what exactly the number is, where they don't know where their parents are. And Trump said good or something at the end of that. I'm not sure what exactly happened or what the actual dialogue there was. But if it was the way the people on Twitter have rendered that exchange, then that could also be another clip that comes back to hurt him from that section.
Wait, can you repeat that really quickly? I'm sorry. What was it? I missed it.
So there was a section where Biden mentioned like the 500, I think it was 545 people or children whose parents were missing, like they couldn't find. And Trump said good or something in response to him bringing that up. And I didn't see, my feed was like messed up while this was happening. So I didn't see what exactly was said. But if Trump literally just said, yeah, it's great that these people, we've lost the parents of these 500 children, that's also a clip that's going to come back. And
for sure.
Probably.
And it should. It's disgusting that he said that.
Yeah.
He also said that they were well kept. He said that the conditions that they were housed in was perfect. It's like, dude, Jacob Soboroff, who's done a pretty good job on this, on the coverage at MSNBC on this, like actually went and interviewed some of these kids. There's like 9-year-old kids who he's asking, what do you want for Christmas? And he's like, I want my dad. Like, you can't fucking say that these kids who are forcibly separated from their parents are being held in good facilities, like being held in good conditions, when they have absolutely no when there's no guarantee that they're ever going to be able to return to their parents. I mean, it's disgusting. It's horrific. And do not forget, Donald Trump's administration very specifically had a child separation policy that they put in place as a deterrent measure, as a deterrence measure. John Kelly, who was widely regarded by liberal media as the adult in the room, originally when he was the Department of Homeland Security secretary, when he was in charge of the HS, very clearly stated as such when he went on, I think it was like Wolf Blitzer's show, maybe he went on CNN and said, we are going to do child separation as a deterrence policy. Now that is barbaric, that's cruel, that's inhumane, and it's completely unacceptable. So do not allow anyone to tell you otherwise. So I'm going to really quickly add Triax in the call here. So I'm gonna, but you guys can keep going. Moon, what do you think about all this? Moon.
I think he talked.
What's up? Go on.
Oh shit! Hang on. No, I'm tripping myself out because I can hear myself.
Oh, okay.
One sec.
Okay, while we do that, I'm going to add.
Okay. All right. I can no longer hear myself. Okay.
Why don't you just do screen capture on?
Because I'm a fucking moron, Hasan. That's why, dude. I've been wrestling with this shit all night.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like you said. Like, what is the purpose of all of this? You said it was team sports. It literally is just spectacle. Honestly, as someone who is largely ignorant about all of this, why the fuck is it that people like you and people like everyone else in this call have more to say about every single issue? And why is it that they can't do that on stage? I don't understand. I don't get it. Why? It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that none of you have any responsibility to be as informed as you are. And all of them do, but they never come to the table with facts or anything or any solutions that seem to be substantial. So to me, it's frustrating. That's my takeaway. And it must be demoralizing for people who cover this regularly. It has to be. I do not envy you whatsoever, dude.
It's definitely not great. I'll admit it's certainly not great, especially when you know what they can be doing and what they have done so far. And then when you hear people even in my own audience, when they're like trying to defend the Democratic Party or trying to defend Joe Biden, when it's fairly clear to me, at least judging by what they've done thus far under the Obama administration, and in comparison to how Obama ran as like a progressive change candidate after 8 years of death and destruction under the Republican control, and his neoliberalism that followed, it is demoralizing. But anyway, that's besides the point. We're covering Trump versus Biden right now. And right. Biden is a lot better than Donald Trump, or at least tonight's performance definitely made Biden look a lot better than Donald Trump, even though, like I said, I was very frustrated seeing the similarities between the two parties. It's always something that really hurts my feelings and demoralizes me, certainly. I have this idea that I forgot to actually debate Dave Weigel on. Hopefully we can bring him back in here so I can ask him this question that I've talked to him on Twitter over before, where I believe that attacking socialized medicine from the left as a member of the Democratic Party will always cause us to lose the argument on any sort of even incremental change towards socialized medicine, like the public option, as Joe Biden was mentioning. And it really hurts us in the long run. Like you need to attack the argument that like socialized medicine is not a bad thing. And the fact that someone is trying to make it seem like socialized medicine is a bad thing, something that is readily available and accessible in all of these other countries. Like, are you really telling me that we're fucking worse than the French, or even worse than that, the Canadians? Really? Like something that the fucking Canadians have been able to figure out. We in the United States, the wealthiest country on earth, have not been able to figure out. Like, that's the kind of messaging that I want to get behind. But instead, the Democrats routinely hurt themselves in the general by taking a reactionary approach to socialized medicine, which then automatically concedes that like socialized medicine is a bad thing and we mustn't do it. And then Republicans can turn around and just be like, everything is socialized medicine, you fucking idiot. Even the public option is socialized medicine. Guess what? You got. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I mean, I think that it matters for more than just healthcare too. Like once you've accepted the argument that government is bad at doing this important thing, then it calls into question whether the government should be doing anything, right? That's what Republicans have been doing for the past couple of decades. Conversely, if Democrats actually put out and succeeded in passing a good healthcare bill, like if they did Medicare for all, you know, in the ideal state, and it worked really well, that would boost people's confidence in the government's capacity.
Yes.
To on anti-poverty programs, and we should spend more on, you know, renewable energy research and all these things, like all the other things that we want government to do. All of that sort of depends upon our ability to convince the public that we should give the government the power and the resources to do those things. And so if you're constantly undermining the public's sense that the government is capable and efficient and all the things the Republicans say it's not, if you're not fighting back against that, you're undermining the entirety of the program, not just healthcare.
Starve the beast. Like, why are you conceding to Reaganomics as a fucking Democrat? Like, it has demonstrably hurt this country. But if you don't give a fuck about hurting this country, you should at least care about winning. And the problem is, like, you're conceding to your opponent's worldview by allowing them to cut taxes, by allowing them to implement austerity measures, by allowing them to undermine federal institutions. And that's why it's a lot easier for Republicans to win that argument every single fucking time. You want to know why Donald Trump has to run? And this is not for you, Osita, obviously this is for everyone else listening. You want to know why Donald Trump has to say, I'm not going to cut Social Security? Because it's a fucking universal program that works and that people know that it fucking works. Everyone gets a Social Security check. Republicans used to try to run on cutting Social Security. Even Joe Biden at a certain point in 2012 under the after the re-election of Barack Obama tried to cut Social Security with a chain CPI adjustment. Luckily, that didn't work. But now people understand that it fucking works. And it's hard to undermine it, okay? It's hard to undermine it because there's a social safety net that fucking works, and it works for everyone. And that is the kind of confidence that we need to bring. That is the confidence that we need to build in this country, that the government is hard work and it's expensive, but it's a fucking necessity. Anyway, we haven't even mentioned that Tri-X is in here. Tri-X,
yo,
what's going on?
Yo,
I'm
Tri-X.
so happy to have you here, man. It's been a fucking long ass time since you come on.
Hey.
Tri-X, for those of you who don't know, is the number one Nintendo speedrunner. Excellent. Jacked as fuck. You got hella jacked during the fucking.
Dude, thanks. Yeah, I've been dieting my ass off, dude. I've been trying to really get it, bro. Trying to get like you, man. Shit.
No, I'm fucking fat now. Anyway, Trax, what did you think? Give us your take.
There's a couple of things here. Well, first, thank y'all for having me on. Obviously, it's been a hot minute. I shedded a tear whenever I saw my last DM. Hassan was like freaking February. It was like the second to last Dem primary debate. Actually, it was the last time we talked. It's been a hot minute, dude. Glad to be on. Raj, miss you, son. It's been a hot minute. Everyone's glad to be here.
Yeah,
part
well, you
part
were
of the panel
fucking
tonight.
turning into a beefcake apparently in Louisiana, where there's nothing else to do. Anyway.
Actually, that is true, dude. With the Rona, small derail here. Actually, what happened was like my public gym I used to attend casually had a mask advisory, not a mask mandate. So no one wore a mask except me and my girlfriend. And I was like, okay, well, fuck this. I don't want to catch the Rona. So this is not safe enough for my liking personally. And I opted to go to a private training facility that had like, classes that were max like 4 people at a time, much more COVID friendly, temperature checks, all that jazz, way more isolated. So went there, and the trainer I was doing was getting my ass kicked hardcore physically, and I had to get And he also, by the way, he referred to me as like a gamer. He was like, "Oh, you're the gamer, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I can tell because you sit a lot. Your hips are very, very frigid, and your back is incredibly non-flexible. But I'm gonna get you right though." And he's been like kicking my ass, and here I am now, 20 pounds lighter, body fat percentage is lower, muscle mass still the same. And there's enough about me, though. I just want to give you a little catch up here on that, bro.
well,
I appreciate it.
But get to your thoughts on the debate. Stop
yeah,
flexing
the,
on us. Stop fucking flexing on us, literally and also figuratively.
The debate, I would say actually, Biden unloaded the clip there. The first 20 minutes was incredibly scathing. I thought that was a really, really good job there. There's a couple like small points I want to like pick in further here. It kind of blew my mind here that like Trump continuously picks on like Biden's gonna give socialized medicine and going for like the vague like socialism scare. But meanwhile, dude, you were at Walter Reed's getting like on the healthcare dime, getting top-notch care. Like you're like the idea that you're downplaying his son Barron's like COVID positivity or even his own infliction of COVID, but like the whole thing there was like you both have like access to like literally the top nation care. No one has that right now. Even getting tested alone's already a giant shit show in the first place here. So it's like it blows my mind here that he can't compute here that he's actually already doing. He's getting the thing he's critiquing right now. It's insane. But I found that like continuously exhausting. Like no one's calling him out on that. I also I'm bringing up like things that stand up in my mind like right away here. The other issue too is that like both of them are bragging about pro-fracking. I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Like this, first off, the fact that we even like, at least we even had a climate change topic come up this debate. Some debates didn't even have it at all here. There were many in the Democratic primary that didn't even go into it at all here. But at least here, and even then, like oftentimes I found a lot of the framing of the questions during the climate change segment to be like not exactly the most like neutral in the world. Like if all the Americans who were watching knew like more of like the worldwide framing of everything, it would have been a little bit better, I found. But like the fact that like I feel like a lot of the average people were really hearing Trump shit on the Paris Accords, or how like we got a bad deal, or just hearing Trump say that that everything's better now under his regulation with his like management of the EPA, and it's like, no, we don't have clean water, we don't have clean air. California has like not the best air at all, and Flint still has like shit water, and under EPA's regulation and administration right now, here we have like, I'm sorry, what?
I said Pennsylvania as well. So one thing that people never talk about, like Flint has really horrible, Flint's water crisis hasn't really been solved, but the same problems of infrastructure exist all around the country, and water quality is actually pretty bad in even like predominantly white neighborhoods, and this is weirdly something that like the Democrats don't stress more frequently. I don't know why. And like, where the fuck was infrastructure week? You know what I mean? It's something that Donald Trump claimed for the longest time. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just something that I get really pissed off by. And as far as your point about Donald Trump taking advantage of socialized medicine, not even socialized, by the way, Walter Reed is literally the NHS. Walter Reed, of course, it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's incredibly well funded for obvious reasons, because it takes care of the fucking president. But Walter Reed is not even socialized medicine. It's nationalized medicine. Every single doctor that takes care of Donald Trump at Walter Reed is actually a public servant. They're people that work for the government. They are military doctors. So, but this, of course, is at the heart of the contradiction that every American believes in, okay? It's very difficult to pinpoint people. They hate Obamacare, but they like the fact that pre-existing conditions are protected. Wait, is Moo leaving? Oh, he has a wow thing to do. Okay, never mind. All right, well, Moon is out. They hate Obamacare, but love the fact that pre-existing conditions are covered. They hate socialized medicine, but then Donald Trump literally is not only taking advantage of Walter Reed, but also talking about making sure that everyone gets the coronavirus relief package that he got for free. Now, is he going to follow through on that? Of course not. But there's an implication there. Like, he understands that this kind of left-wing populist rhetoric is absolutely successful. Him trying to offer $200 to every single senior to pay for their pharmaceuticals. That's socialism in the eyes of Republicans. It's not socialism. It's not exactly seizing the means of production, but it's still socialism in the American way of understanding socialism. And yet they rarely ever think about it that way. And it's good when the Republicans do it, and it's bad when the Democrats do it. Horrible messaging from the Democratic Party, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a good way to summarize. I'm writing some. I should have been writing stuff down during the debate. I apologize here.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take a second to compile more of my, in particular, hot points. But have we all actually gone up? Like, did you want us to go over like who we thought definitively won? Is that what is it, or did you already do that part yet? Because I didn't join right away in the middle here or in the beginning. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think we've sort of come to the. I like Ryan's take on this, and that's I think that the polls will show that it sort of falls on party lines, and I think that I personally think Biden won the debate decisively, but I think people who support Trump will probably think that he won the debate. The bar was set. What's so interesting is the bar was set so low for Biden in the first debate that he blew away everybody. The bar for this entire debate was set so low by the previous debate that I think people are quite shocked that it was as civil as it was.
The mute was actually really good. It was a very powerful tool. It was shockingly good. Like, honestly, it was. I don't know if she even used the mute tool. I feel like they used it so seamlessly that I couldn't even recognize if it was being used or not. But even the fear of getting muted and looking like a clown, I think, really stopped Trump and made him more apprehensive.
Take here. I've got a fringe off the. This is just off the top fringe lib take, and I'm not sure how it's going to be taken.
There you go.
Okay?
That's what we want from you. We want the liberal take.
Here's the deal. Donald Trump has branded himself as the outsider, the guy that is not a politician, the guy that is going to say the thing with the massive amount of shock value. That's what rallies his base. And he thinks this is a base election. He thinks if he can turn out his base, then he can win the election. So to me, I think it's counterproductive for him to not be that Donald Trump. And I think to some degree, his performance in the debate tonight, being that civil Donald Trump, the Donald Trump that doesn't rile up his base and get those people, veins popping out of their foreheads at his rally, I don't know if this serves him very well, because I think the electorate is mostly decided. And I don't think by him, if he truly thinks it's a base election, it's too late to try to change the notion that Donald Trump is this, very, civil, politician-like figure. I think it's too late. So I think it was an
it's
interesting
too late.
strategy.
You're right, but it's not a base election, or at the very
I know,
least,
but he thinks it's a base election.
No, I think that it just was not going to happen. Because his base withered away.
Well, I know, but he thinks. But what it is and what it isn't is he thinks it's a base election. Otherwise, why would he be campaigning the way he's campaigning? If he didn't think it was a base election, he thinks that what got him to the White House in 2016 is going to get him to the White House in 2020. He believes that, and it happened in 2016. And he's trying to repeat a lot of the same things to get him there for 2020. And again, he's delusional. He's delusional. This is why in 2016, on numerous occasions, I was reading about it, how many times his advisors said, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And he did it every time. And it got him the White House in 2016, which inflated his ego even more and reaffirmed his narcissistic bias. And he's doing it again.
I mean, I think he kind of believes that it's a base election, but I also think he's scared enough that he's taken the advice of advisors who don't think it's a base election. So this is why he was calm. This is why he complimented the moderator a couple of times. What was that about? That was not Trump. No, when he said, "Oh, you're doing this. You've been doing a very good job, handling this." That's something that's very uncharacteristic for him. So I think that he kind of believes, and definitely when he goes out and does his rallies in person, is encouraged by that spectacle, thinking that this is the 2016 election where turnout and the enthusiasm of white working class voters is where the action is going to be. But also I think that he's scared enough by the numbers that he's willing to try sort of more moderate temperament approach,
Right.
And I think that's why he ultimately was a lot calmer this time.
Maybe it was the stage that he was on. Perhaps he felt he had an opportunity to reach people in the margins because of how big the stage was. And when he's, feeding that that divisive rhetoric that he does in his rally, he's only really getting to his base. He's rallying up his base. So maybe he felt like this would be a good approach. Because even before, you guys saw him setting the narrative for the corrupt moderator. He was attacking the moderator like not even less than 24 hours before the debate even happened, which is what's so shocking to me, that he was complimenting her on the debate stage. So it's interesting.
Well, he consumes more media than probably any other individual in the entire United States. And so, he watched all of the coverage of his last debate performance, in which he tried to literally kill Joe Biden, but also figuratively, politically kill Joe Biden. And it completely blew up on him. And everyone told him that he was, everyone told him that he had gotten just hammered. So I think he just told himself, because I don't think he's surrounded by people anymore who can tell him to change his behavior.
They're all going to jail. All the people who would have told him that.
Exactly. So I think he came up with this on his own based on watching the terrible reviews.
In all seriousness, though, a Donald Trump that's not fearful of losing the election does not listen to his advisors, no matter who the fuck they are. And it is the best indication that he sees the polls. No matter how much he tries to rile up his base at his rallies and say, look how big our rallies are. Look how great we're doing. Polls are all lying. I got internal polls or whatever the fuck he says. Ultimately, if he truly believed that he was winning, I don't think he would change his rhetoric. So, Austin, you are correct on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I watched an entire 50-minute 2016 documentary to get those takes. Spent a lot of time.
Go ahead, Trags.
I'm sorry. I don't know like the formalities here when the cut in or not.
There's nothing.
Here.
You just butt in and
just butt in and go.
If you don't butt in, you're not going to get in.
Yeah, I don't know. Trump seems like he's lost his intuition, to be honest here. Like he's like been like super drunk on One America News Network or something here, because he seems like he's like the blatant racist dog whistles on taking back the suburbs seems like a super OANN talking point. Even here, I think Roger's alluding to some kind of thing where Trump's trying to be more presidential.
Austin, sorry, I know it's new.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, dude, it's been a hot minute. I apologize.
I know it's all good. It's all good.
Also, just to really quickly cut you off on that point, actually, Trags, I disagree. I think taking back the suburbs is not racist enough for his base. I think Trump's appeal is that he doesn't say we're taking back the suburbs. Trump's appeal to his base always was, no, black people are coming to your suburbs and they're gonna steal your shit. He wouldn't go so far. He wouldn't go that far with black people, but he certainly went that far with Mexican immigrants and whatnot. Like when he said Mexicans are rapists, right? So I feel like the suburbs line is too 1960s and too civil even for Donald Trump. So I don't even know if his base is understanding what he's saying when he says we need to protect the suburbs.
Well, I think okay. So I didn't get to finish the point there, but even today, you did a tweet today talking about still on the suburbia thing. It's going to be doomed under Joe Biden, and I think that's because there was some key demographics that were revealing here that under suburban women, I think it was, or middle-aged women or something like that. Trump's
suburban women, yes, he's losing them.
Abysmal. So he's trying to work on that somehow, and just oh, they live there, so yeah, I'm gonna make it good for you or whatever. But anyways, before we get to that point here, let's rewind back a little bit. What Austin, I feel, was alluding to here, that Trump is trying to be more presidential and less divisive. I still feel that if he was, he's taking from a 9 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 now, because he's still continually shit on, those Democratic states, those Democratic governors, that's where COVID was a hot mess in New York because Cuomo, blah, 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 blah. And it's he sounds more to me, the president of the conservative states of America or the red states of America. It's always a red versus blue thing whenever he's framing it like that and trying to pivot the blame on wherever things got really fucked up with COVID in the first place in the very beginning stages where all the populations were incredibly dense. So I still feel he if he was being more residential in a spectrum, it was still really, really divisive. But that could be me being a little too savvy and not seeing it on a more casual political junkie perspective.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that just yes, that came through so clearly when he said look, the reason I didn't do that House passed stimulus bill is because it was going to give a bunch of money to, Democrat-run, crime-infested cities that are overrun by immigrants. It was like you just blew your entire thing there. Like he had been, talking a big game about how he's going to do a lot of stimulus and he's like getting the economy going. And he, he's here for everybody. And then boom. He just straight up says, I'm keeping money away from people because it might benefit democratic cities and they're overrun by crime and immigrants. It's like, right. The whole calm, moderate thing that you just did was just shattered by that.
Yeah, and I think in contrast, or contrasting that point that Trump made, I think it was one of Biden's strongest moments in the debate is when he went on the attack to say, "I'm not going to be a president of red and blue states. I'm going to be an American president," which I think is a strong contrast between Trump's vision of America. And one thing I liked about Biden's performance in the debate tonight is I think in the first debate, one of my frustrations was Trump would say something and then I would feel just the response that I wanted Biden to give, but he wouldn't give it. And I think tonight, Biden did it a lot more. When Trump would say something, he'd go on the attack and he'd nail it. I think most of the time. I think in the first debate, he failed to do that on several occasions. This time, I think he got it. And one of those moments was when he was drawing that contrast between him being an American president and Donald Trump being a divisive president.
I love that. You're absolutely correct on I'm going to be president. I'm going to be America's president. I think that's exactly what Americans want right now.
Can I talk about a weird moment of the debate? I don't know if you guys notice this, but do you remember, and this just speaks to Trump's huge ego. Do you remember the part of the debate when he accuses Biden of taking money from Wall Street and then goes and makes it a pissing contest about how he could pull more money from Wall Street?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that part of the debate? I just thought it was so peculiar how he couldn't put his ego to the side. He was trying to make it an attack, but he's like, you know what? You take money from Wall Street, but not as much money as I could take from Wall Street. Believe me, nobody takes more money from Wall Street than I do. It was so peculiar. I didn't really understand it. He couldn't put his ego to the side of the.
I agree. He didn't want to give he didn't want to make the thing into like a substance, answer with a follow up like a debate, I guess, should be. And it wanted to be more about Trump's familiar territory of just like going for attacks and then getting things personal. And then like his rally trademarks usually are here, making it about himself, me. I was treated the worst. I'm the best president ever. I mean, dude, he did the same thing with his answer on like, how should black families feel in America whenever they get to talk? And I feel like he kind of like derailed hardcore on how he's the best president for black people since maybe even better than Abraham Lincoln. He just makes it about himself inevitably because it's like what he's comfortable doing.
Yeah.
My favorite line of his that I thought he actually did well on was when Joe Biden did that thing. You're sitting around your kitchen table wondering if you can replace your bald tires or whether or not Nancy can go to the community college in the fall. Who's going to tell her she can't? And Trump's just like, what is this with the kitchen table crap and you politicians? Like that. Okay, that's good. Like that. Like, what is it with this kitchen table crap?
I don't know. I feel like because of how horrible, like how little retail politicians we have now in like the technocratic neoliberal Democratic Party, that like I feel like it's almost refreshing to hear an old candidate talk about old school, like acts like he fucking cares about the kitchen table issues kind of Democrat. But I don't know.
It's true.
He got real descriptive on that too, Ryan. But Joe was talking about touching somebody at the table and they realize they're not there. I mean, he was deep into that explanation.
I've actually been surprised we haven't seen more of that this campaign. I mean, 200,000 people are dead, for Christ's sakes. Like, you'd expect there to be like some poignant stories about some family that's lost people to coronavirus that Biden trots out, in his appearances or at these debates. But you don't really hear that at all. You heard a little bit of it tonight, but I just got the sense that like that kitchen table exchange was his attempt to do a little bit of that. But for some reason, I don't know if it's a conscious decision. Why do you think that is? I don't know.
Is it because it's so pervasive and so consuming?
I almost feel like it's a deliberate decision. It has to be to not lean too deeply into that kind of thing. I'm not sure why they made it.
or they're just so fucking like they're so complacent and they don't even want to talk about that. They just want to be like, it's a referendum. It doesn't even make sense though from that point, because like this is a perfect way to heighten all the horrible things that Donald Trump has done, even if you're going for the referendum election. You know what I mean? Because that's what I hear from Democrats all the time. Is like, this is a referendum election. We cannot talk about policies because that opens us up to a line of attack. We just got to only highlight how terrible Trump has been. Best not talk about any policies, because then, you know, Republicans can attack us on it. And I find that to be a horrible strategy across the board, even though Democrats will end up winning because of how horrible Republicans have run their campaigns so far, and because of how Donald Trump's basically imploding right in front of our eyes. But that over-reliance on Republicans being bad is not good enough. I don't think it will carry us to more electoral victories. The thing that frustrates me off of that point, the thing that frustrates me more than anything, this was the best moment, in my opinion, in the debate when Joe Biden turned around and was like, it was a Republican Congress, and then he just stopped talking for like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I fucking
remember
love
that.
that shit, because you guys, OC to Ryan, I'm sure you can tell me I'm wrong here for some reason. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but I don't know why Democrats don't do that more often. I think Joe Biden saying I'm America's president is great. Okay, that's great. But then he also needs to say Republicans are not America's politicians. They don't even run for their own fucking constituents. They run for big business only, and they do it every election cycle. Like, they do it, and it's the truth. I don't know why Democrats don't highlight that more. What is this? Like, are you afraid of like offending the Republicans so they won't work with you? Guess what? Newsflash, they were never going to fucking work with you. No matter how much you concede to them, they're not going to work with you. They're fucking vultures, okay? They're immoral. They're cruel. They're horrible. They're never going to work with you, and that's because they do better politics than you.
I think it's my take real quick is I think it's a symptom of the fact that Democrats like Joe Biden have been on the defensive since 1980. You know, they have never had the confidence to say that they are, you know, full-blooded Americans. And in order to say that these Republicans don't represent their constituents, you have to be able to say that we as Democrats do. Whereas because of the Reagan Revolution and all the years that they spent in the minority, they're just like kick dogs who are afraid of the shadow of a voter who's going to call them a communist and an America hater, and so they reach for that rhetoric of we're all Americans, which is sort of like they're pleading to be allowed back into the conversation as Americans, whereas younger people, you know, who weren't born in like the 1920s, don't have that same fear of Ronald Reagan, and so are more willing to say, no, Republicans are just thugs, and they don't represent anybody but big business, and it's hard, you know.
I mean, there is not a better, and this is for a longer ideological project where Democrats win not just the presidency, okay, but also Senate races and House races, which they'll usually win if it wasn't for fucking gerrymandering anyway. Like, I don't understand why you're not doing your cabinet and your party offering them a layup by just saying, look at the fucking Republican Senate. And Joe Biden did that a little bit on this election, on this debate stage tonight. And I want to see that more. I want that same fucking partisan energy from the Democrats, and not for like idiotic establishment Democrat, incrementalist, means-tested policy shit. I want that partisan energy when it comes to showcasing how cruel the Republican Party is and how awful their project is. So awful that I'm sure you guys know this. When you tell voters what the Republican policy positions actually are, they don't fucking believe you, because they're like, no way. No one is that cruel. That's insane. Imagine that being an advantage for you, that your policies are so beyond the pale that when someone describes them to you, your fucking voters, they say, that's not real. I don't believe it. That's too cruel.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats are also not doing, I mean, the reason why they're able to get away with that in part is because Democrats do a bad job of articulating how bad the Republican Party actually is, and they're wary of engaging in partisan rhetoric. There are exceptions to that, as we saw with Biden tonight, but like they'll say that about Republican Congresses blocking things after the fact, right, as an excuse for why they weren't able to do something.
Yeah.
But then they'll turn around and say, well, the way I'm going to address the Supreme Court is I'm going to create a commission with Republicans and Democrats and conservative lawyers and liberal lawyers. We're all going to come together and come up with the best solution on the judiciary that we can. You know, like it's a circular thing. It's partially, as Ryan said, because Democrats of this generation have been traumatized by their experiences in the 80s, and they saw that Clinton came to power in the 90s by being a centrist and, you know, that whole brand of politics. So that's part of the answer. But also, I think genuinely the American people have been encouraged to believe that bipartisanship is a hugely important political value. You know, it's something that the politicians should strive for, that the best solutions are the solutions that come from Democrats and Republicans sitting down together and working things out. And it's like sports, and you want, you know, good sportsmanship. That's the kind of political culture voters have been encouraged to believe in for the past couple of decades. And that's why the rhetoric about I'm going to be an American president really resonates. That's why Obama's speech in 2004 about there not being blue states of America and, you know, red states of America, but United States of America. That's why that resonated in the way that it did. So to actually move things past that to a sort of more mature, less childish understanding of the way politics actually works, you're going to need leaders who actively say, look, like, it would be great if we had a country in which both sides could come together rationally and work out the best solutions for everybody. But that's not the country we have. We have a country in which one party is determined enough to secure the wealth and power of capital that they're going to destroy American democracy if we don't do anything about it. And we need to come together as a party and have anybody else in America who's willing to join us stop them, you know, and actually and actually have a democracy. But Biden is not the person who's going to do that. I don't really see very many people in the Democratic Party as a whole who are prepared to do that. Bernie Sanders, frankly, for, you know, all of his strengths as a candidate and you know, for all of his policies, I don't think even he did enough to really hammer this home. I think that there needs to be somebody who finally stands up and isn't afraid to say, look, we need to defeat the Republican Party totally, not just in this particular election, but as a project, because we're not going to move forward on any issue, and we're not going to have a democracy if we don't fundamentally disempower them.
Ooh, I have a, if I may here, I do agree with you. So the thing is, like, I thought a certain thing prior to the 2020 Democratic primary elections that were happening, and then when we examine and figure out like why Bernie didn't get further or why he lost, aside from like the, you know, the backstage consolidation of everyone folding into Joe Biden over leading up to Super Tuesday and all that, I think here that this is going to kind of complicated, like kind of meta topic here, but I feel like it goes into one that ultimately Democrats are there to like serve their donors, I feel, and not really their base, whereas Republicans at least convey some kind of pseudo obligation that their base is entertained. Like, I don't know if they're drunk off the propaganda and the Kool-Aid or whatever here, but a Republican voter thinks that they're getting their agenda served, I guess, unlike comparatively as a Democratic person. But if we go in further here, I just feel like you can't really fix the Democratic Party from the inside. I feel that's kind of the issue here, because like, if you are upfront and honest, like I feel like Bernie was being a Democratic socialist, you get smeared endlessly on mainstream media as like, you know, this like foreign entity is just like there. You're not part of the fold, dude. So I feel like in order to like really radically shake up the two-party system and get Democrats to actually like do their part and like do a power check on whenever Republicans just run rampant with the gerrymandering or whatever thing they're doing, right? With all the, I mean, pick your topic, right? Essentially here, you have to come from the outside. You got to be bold and you got to be unapologetic. Like an example I would think of here, let's go to tonight's debate, for example, right? The fact that like Joe Biden is like pro fracking when we're talking about like climate change, and Trump tries to use that as like but no, you're not pro business because you said at one point you don't support fracking. And I feel like comparatively, I don't know, I feel like maybe a typical Democrat would be like, whoa, and then they would argue over who's more like on the right side, like who's more right leaning on like, yeah, I'm pro fracking. Well, I'm really into fracking. And it's like, hello, climate change, this is crazy. I feel like if you had someone who's like unapologetic, whenever they get attacked on like a right-wing framed question on those kind of things, like where it's all marketed as like pro-business, but not really about the consequences of those actions in the first place here, you're unapologetic about that, and you're able and willing to defend that endlessly. You need more people like that. I don't know if that means more like Yangers or what. I'm not quite sure yet, but like 2024, even 2022 onward here, we are seeing more of that come out right now here. I mean, the pandemic alone made like UBI and automation like a huge upfront point now. So, and even Medicare for all too. So like, depending on how it's asked and who you're being polled for, I mean, it can be gamed and manipulated here. Like, ooh, the boogeyman with the big socialized medicine or federal government operating your medical care. But like, these things are on the rise, and if the right person comes in to able to convey the more accessible framing, generally it's a populist policy. Sorry, it's kind of a word salad there, but I'm excited.
No, yeah, I think that's right. And I think part of the reason that the Democrats aren't better at calling out Republicans as kind of an existential threat to democracy is that this alignment that we have politically now is essentially brand new to American politics. Like if you look at the first 200 years of the American two-party system, you never had a situation where the parties lined up next to each other on the political spectrum in the way that they do now, with the Democrats moving from kind of the left to the center, left to the center, and then the Republicans being center right over to the right. Instead, you had these huge ideological mishmashes inside each party. You could have a liberal Republican 50 years ago that was far more liberal than the most conservative Democrat. And you don't have that now. And so what that did is that it taught Americans that your real political battles are within your own party. And, you win those, and then whoever wins within your party, then you go out and then you're the one that kind of is the leader of that party that then cuts deals with the other party. Now, Joe Manchin would be the most liberal Republican in the entire Senate or the House. That just wouldn't be the situation today. And so leftists today, for instance, like just aren't trained to really hate the Republican Party.
Yes.
They're trained and raised to kind of hate centrist sellout corporate Democrats. And the same is true on the Republican side. Like the Tea Partiers and the MAGA folks, they hate Paul Ryan and even Mitch McConnell far more than they hate Democrats.
But they should hate the fucking Republican Party. Like, this is something I stress in this community a lot, which is that you should absolutely despise all politicians as normal, except for AOC and Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, and all the ones that I like them. They're cool. But you should despise most politicians, but you should really fucking despise the Republicans. They're like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't want to say too many horrible things and like. I know Ryan, it can withstand it, but like I don't want Osita to like get caught up in the crossfire here if we get clipped out of like Fox News. But they are literal fucking vultures. Okay, they are animals. They're hogs. They do not have your best interest at heart. I cannot stress this
they
enough.
lack principles. They're a power cult. Yeah, it's been proven at this point. They're shoving in a Supreme Court justice like ahead of like any other thing. Like that was insane, dude. Oh, but wait, but before we go though, okay, there was one thing while we're on this topic, which is actually really, really good. I wanted to dive into here. Someone in my chat said here that Bernie is way too far left for most Americans, and that's the issue. And in the context here, and again, not to make it about Bernie right now, but just in the context that like, can someone help reform the Democrats to be, as you were saying earlier, aggressive on Republicans and calling them out, and or changing the paradigm and the framing of whenever Republicans come in with like typically a right-wing viewpoint about like being pro-business, as opposed to like, being, I don't know, environmentally responsible as an example, right?
See,
thing there is like, I'm sorry, you got something?
No, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were. No.
So the thing there is like, I feel like, and this is this might be an ugly conversation here, but like the stigma on the labels is out of control now. Can we have that convo actually? Because like, good Lord, if you in 2020 say that you are an actual social justice warrior, unironically, because that's been like weaponized and like just used in so many other abstract concepts now that it doesn't even mean what it used to mean anymore. Like, No one ever unironically calls themselves or refers to themselves as SJW at this point. You use it whenever you're like, I don't know, like you think of like some purple-haired college campus like person getting shitted on by like Dave Rubin or whatever in some particular debate or whatever. And like comparatively here, it's like, so if you say you're like pro-socialism, like people can immediately conflate it to like, so you're communist or whatever. Like people, like labels don't mean shit. And so like I don't think winning on definitive like actual textbook definition labels gets us very far at this point. I think what you really need is you need someone who's an outsider, has that A1 stellar political intuition to like use all this and say, I'm pro-American. Like whenever I'm for Medicare for all, you don't even call it that, honestly. If that's like a divisive terminology at this point now, it's been smeared on so often by like big pharma or whatever. You say, I'm for American. I have the most awesome American plan here. As a tax-paying American, you are a member of my club. And as a member of my club, my membership perk here is I'm going to give you baller ass healthcare straight up. Just like a Costco membership, just like a Sam's Club membership, just like any other membership here. You're a member of, you're a member of Netflix and you get all the great content. As paying taxes, you're a member of the American Club, and I'm gonna get you some sick ass healthcare because you deserve that.
By the way,
what have we done for you when you pay taxes? As an example.
No, I agree with you on that. I think that we need to normalize. This is a very Kyle Kalinske style take, by the way, Triax, but I agree that it's like the rational position, and the more centrist, the more moderate position should be that we should have socialized medicine. Look at the rest of the world. They laugh at us. You can like play onto the tug on the heartstrings of Americans on areas that they would be embarrassed by. But before we get to that, before we continue with that, I just got to point out, who was the one who said the who won the debate is going to be exactly along like the line of Ryan, you are on the money completely. Data for Progress preliminary results just came out. It shows Biden at 52% and Trump at 41% for who won the debate.
Was that about
really? Was that close? One? Ow.
Was
I'm surprised.
52-41.
Yeah, 52% to 41%. Trump got 41% of the I guess country according to the Data for Progress poll.
They don't even need to do these polls anymore. Like
I was gonna say, like, in reality, who's watching this debate at this point to get their mind changed, right? You're only watching to see your team win.
Yeah, exactly. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, again, just, what's interesting is, we say these debates don't move the needle, but I felt like the last one sort of moved the needle in favor of Biden just ever so. That's what pushed his national lead over 10 into double digits. It felt like this one truly didn't move the needle. I mean, this one truly.
If I may. I think you're half right there. Biden marginally did better, only that like Trump like shot himself in the foot really, really bad. I think everyone generally like despised how he performed because of the pestering amount of interruptions there.
From the first one?
From the first one, correct, yeah.
This is where I think that the reason why I think Biden won the first debate more decisively than he actually. So you have his base performance, right? If you're just judging it objectively based on the performance, it's not decisive. But the reason why it was a decisive win is because the bar was set so low for him, and they pushed this narrative of him being, a dementia-ridden old man, that he surpassed that bar, and therefore surpassing those expectations made it seem like a much larger victory than it actually was.
And also Trump lost it for him as well in the first debate. Like Trump lost that debate by coming across way too aggressive and not letting Biden fail on his own, especially towards the end.
And overwhelmingly, people were polled after that debate and they said that the debate was annoying. And this is, 77% of the people that were annoying. Yeah. And the reason why it was annoying is because Trump interrupted 150 times. And so I think that it just showed where the state of the electorate. The electorate is sick and tired of 4 years, and they're exhausted by day after day seeing a president that just lies and lies and lies and all these antics, and they're just sick of it. They're exhausted. They want to see something like Joe Biden.
Sick of him interrupting their daily life with like some CNN news alert saying he just did another crazy thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it was like a metaphor for that, where it's like enough.
Yeah,
enough. Can't you be normal? Can't you be normal for 90 minutes?
Yeah, and I'm all libbed up. I'll be honest with you, Ryan. I am all libbed up after this debate. I'm so happy.
So what changed then? Nothing.
Well, nothing's changed, but I'm still whipped up because Hassan, the thing is that I was like you, just afraid of the fact that we came into these debates thinking that Joe Biden could not put together a sentence. Like that was the concern. That was the bar to clear for Joe Biden. And it seems as if the mental decline that it appeared to be, whatever cocktail of whatever, I don't know what happened, but it seems like it's been a mental incline. It's been a mental incline ever since that was sort of a concern. And he sort of proved everybody that had that concern wrong in these debates. I feel I wasn't concerned about that at all as I was before these debates.
And he faded at the end there, but as long as we can get a president until like 9 p.m., that should.
That was the last
that's
debate.
it.
It doesn't matter. Like this is the last time he's going to have to do that.
Guys,
until
the person who saw the future, and this doesn't get mentioned enough, was my boy motherfucking Michael Bennett. When he said it was Bennett that said, "I'm going to be a president that you're never going to hear about me. Like you're going to forget that I'm the president." And that's kind of what we're going to get from Joe Biden. I don't think Joe Biden is going to be a showboat. I don't even think he has the capability of doing a lot of stuff on camera. He's just too old. I truly think that he doesn't have the energy. Like I legitimately believe that his administration will be competent. His administration will be very moderate, unfortunately, and we'll forget that the president even exists for the most part.
And his big
Go ahead.
His biggest handicap is going to be his indecisiveness. He's like historically, the knock on him is he's not very good at managing staff and kind of lazy and kind of mean to his staff, kind of roped into one. But B, he just can't make a decision. And like he had basically no staff in Iowa because he couldn't decide on who to hire as his his top Iowa people. So that's just a rather minor kind of decision to make. He's now going to be faced with these massive decisions about what he's going to do about the filibuster in the court, and what is he going to push for the Medicare 55 first? And the huge fear is that he's just going to be utterly paralyzed by indecision, and the next thing we know, it'll be like summer, and
can I ask you about that?
Waiting on him to make decisions.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point. I wanted to dig you a little further on that. So like. I can agree with you because I remember in Iowa, pretty much until what was it, South Carolina? Was that the last election before Super Tuesday, right? Yeah. So before then, Biden was falling over, asleep at the wheel. Even debate performance was like, Snoresville at best, right?
Yeah.
And then like once there was like no viable path to victory for Pete Buttigieg or Amy Klobuchar or Elizabeth Warren. You saw, that hyper consolidation of all of them folding voluntarily, all to get behind Biden once Biden took South Carolina, right? Which gave the media what they needed to do, nonstop coverage of that one state's victory going into Super Tuesday, which was enough to then attack everyone else, particularly Bernie, on his electability, which I feel is like the big thing you saw get done there into Super Tuesday, right? My question here, though, is like in a relatively conspiratorial sense. Do you feel who was pulling those cards there? Because the Biden I saw in the prior debates and the Biden we're seeing now are like two very different things. So you're saying that he couldn't pick his own staff or wasn't able to decide on staff in Iowa. I'm just like, well, then who pulled the strings to do all this stuff in the background here? And if it was, let's say, Obama administration people, does it almost feel like there's going to be like, asleep at the wheel, Bernie weekend at Bernie's, this is going to be Biden. It's going to be everyone in the background, pulling the strings a little bit there because he's going to be so hands off or whatever.
I mean, it was Obama. Like we know that it was Obama, right? Isn't it?
That was speculation. Is that okay? No, I mean, to me that seems very believable and not far-fetched at all.
I mean, there was plenty of coverage around it. I don't know. Am I being crazy?
Wait, Obama's going back to the White House?
No.
No.
I'm sorry. I tuned out for
excited. Don't get excited. Obama's not.
I just heard Obama's name and I thought he was coming back to be president behind the scenes.
You got a minute. You dump Kamala. It's gonna be Obama VP, baby. We back.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I thought for a second I was getting excited. All right, sorry. Anyway, go on.
I mean, he will be a serious power behind the throne. There's no question about that. Like he could pretty much call whatever shot he wanted. But yeah, It was Biden, and then it was, so the story that night out of South Carolina and the next day was, Bernie failed to win over black voters. Biden dominates. And now he gets Pete and Amy, and he cruises into Super Tuesday. Now that we're not relying on exit polls but actual voter data, we know that what actually happened, and the reason he had this blowout win in South Carolina was that there was never before seen turnout in the suburbs, particularly among white women. It was the same voters that are powering Democrats, now to the lead that they have. The same voters that helped them take over the House. There was something like 100% plus increase in turnout among white suburban voters in South Carolina as the suburbs there, just as they are across the entire country, evolved, switched, realigned into Democratic bastions. And those folks got the message from Clyburn and from others that Joe Biden is the man. They're following politics very closely. They tick the box for Biden, and then 3 days later, those same types of voters all across the country did the exact same thing.
You know what those voters are? Those are the voters that say, we got to vote for Joe Biden, but also I should probably vote for a Republican senator to keep Joe Biden in check.
Well,
Okay, there's no evidence.
Wait,
to
is that the lot? Do people actually think like that? Is that how they think that's going to work
that's
out?
how a lot of people.
Used to be.
A lot
Used
of
to be.
Americans.
Yeah, we'll see how much that holds. It'll be interesting.
That's what's making some of these races interesting in the swing Senate states, right? Like there's a clear split where Trump is underperforming or overperforming in certain places,
Like
and Biden's
Texas,
underperforming,
right?
overperforming the Senate candidates, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are enough of those voters left to matter, but
Right.
as a broad phenomenon in the electorate, that's not really a thing anymore. For the most part, most people will just go straight ticket.
Well,
Thank God.
So one thing I'm seeing here now, though, and maybe because I'm paying more attention to politics now than I was even in 2016 or even midterms in 2012, but like I am seeing like a more consistent message now on like what are the aspirations and the goals of, I guess, like the Democratic Party, for example, and I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric on flip the Senate. We got to get the Senate majority popping so we can actually do stuff with if Biden gets presidency and all that. So I'm seeing a more consistent message now, and I feel like because that enthusiasm turned out. Because let's be real, right? Because the midterms in 2018 dwarfed the midterms comparatively in 2012, right? In terms of like voter turnout across all demographics, especially the youth, right? And so I think that 2018 leap in momentum of like people wanting to see like things change because things aren't going good right now under Trump's presidency, particularly here, resulted in people just paying a lot more attention, especially in the youth factor and the youth demographics. Going into 2020s, people were like, okay, so it's not just president. I need to look into the president and do I have a Senate race coming up right now? And they're kind of like, people are trying to like really push everyone to go down ballot, I feel. So you're right. It is actually having a little more change now, I feel, than in the past.
Yeah. Overall, by the way, I have an update. Speaking time, which I think is like one of the dumbest parts of the
I hate that metric.
The metric that like it's so clearly a project by the media. Like it's just because they're just looking. It's like prop bets. You know what I mean? You're just putting that out there just because like it's just extra information and you don't know how to cover the time. You don't have enough to talk about. But Donald Trump spoke for 41 minutes and 16 seconds. Joe Biden spoke for 37 minutes and 53 seconds. Apparently.
Who the fuck is that comment down below? It's pissing me off.
Trump said
Twitter
90%
replies.
of what he wanted to say. Biden didn't say what he needed to say to win the debate.
What an idiot.
Polls
What a
will move
cop. He's
after this
coping.
debate. Some D states will become more blue, but many more Republican states where Biden needs votes will become more red. See,
What an idiot.
no, fuck that guy. But
Fuck that guy.
Okay, that guy's stupid, but guess what? You know who else is stupid?
Quote
Democrats.
tweet his ass.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Do you want to know why Democrats are fucking stupid?
Why?
Because, and this goes back to like not having enough partisan support for the Democratic Party or only demonstrating partisan support for the most idiotic things that MSNBC tells Democratic voters to demonstrate support on, like hating Bernie Sanders because of Bernie Bros or whatever. The Amy Coney Barrett political theater was really important for me because if you guys were following the polls, at least, I don't know how trustworthy they are, But the Democratic support for Amy Coney Barrett in the aftermath of those theatrics in the Senate, where they could have held those behind closed doors, never held them. Doesn't matter if they follow procedure. If they follow procedure, none of it fucking matters. Republicans are going to do whatever they can to get Amy Coney Barrett appointed, right? And they have the majority votes for it before the election.
Right.
16 points. 16 points is how much Amy Coney Barrett picked up support after those fucking meetings, after those hearings. That is disgusting to me, okay? Like, I'm sick and tired of old motherfuckers looking at stuff and being like, oh my God, this person is civil, so I actually like what this person has to say. I'm not even going to think about how devastating this person will be. Like, Amy Coney Barrett is more fucking conservative than Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas and certainly Kennedy.
No, you're not wrong. She's a trademark definitive religious cultist.
She's more, she's more conservative than Antonin Scalia, a person who literally wrote, and this is a testament to how much bullshit the textualist or originalist argument is. A person who literally wrote in one of his famous dissents that legalizing gay marriage would be a slippery slope, which is a fucking fallacy anyway, to dogs marrying humans. Okay? So it's bullshit. Like, it's all fucking bullshit. I don't know why people get so caught up in the civility, in the civility and the theater of it all. It makes me so mad. It makes me so insanely angry just thinking about how all these moderates are like, oh, well, she looks like me. She sounds like me. She sounds civil. She's adopted kids from Haiti, so she must be a nice person. She simply can't be racist. And you know, start.
Is she Catholic?
Appealing to her. I mean, start liking her. She is Catholic, yes, but not like regular Catholic.
Hope she listens. She's not like listen to the Pope Catholic.
No, the Pope is like fucking.
It's more Catholic than the Pope.
Yeah, exactly.
The Pope is the most progressive Pope I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's like
he endorsed gay marriage. I think, yeah.
It's
Wouldn't be surprised if the Pope had a partner or something. I don't know.
Isn't that remarkable? Watching American Catholics be like, oh well, the coping with the Pope saying that, like, you know, gay marriage should be legal and you know, gay people should be able to adopt children and stuff. And then like Catholics are like, oh no, he didn't mean that. It's like, oh, so it had nothing to do with your religion. It just had everything to do with bigotry and you justifying it through religion. If the fucking Pope is like, this is chill, and you are going up against the literal fucking Pope.
That's mostly conservative Catholics. Like the general American Catholic population is more chill on these issues than the people who are like the loudest voices in American politics, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think the conservative Catholic community has been going through like a long conniption over the past year, especially over Francis, and I think it's going to be something that shapes Republican politics in the years ahead. Now you have people like Adrian Vermeule. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Adrian Vermeule, who's a professor at Harvard Law, constitutional law professor, who's a member of, I guess they call themselves integralists, and their whole thing is that they want to turn the United States into a Catholic dominion. That's their version of right-wing conservative social politics, you know. And these are the people who are like taking over from the sort of usual establishment religious right. Like it's people who are saying to themselves, he wrote a piece in the Atlantic earlier this year, actually, that the real way that social conservatives are going to enforce morality is to actually abandon originalism and abandon the Constitution, like abandon the Bill of Rights and giving up on trying to get your way by, you know, doing this fake textual analysis. Vermeule says, ignore all that. We're just going to say, look, we are moral people and we're going to shape the law to our own ends. And we're not going to do this whole charade where we're pretending that we're reading the Constitution and making decisions on the basis of the Constitution. Forget all of that. We just deserve to rule because we're moral people.
But they do
and that's
that
where
anyway.
the religious right is going.
And they do that anyway. That's actually more honest. That, like, what is the constitutional like argument? What is the originalist argument for, I don't know, destroying labor unions? Like, there's no fucking argument that they actually do. They throw all of that. Like, there are limitations that even originalists or textualists admit when it comes to their personal interpretation of the law in certain circumstances, especially because, like, this entire thing is a fucking fallacy to begin with. Because what, like, okay, you're a black Supreme Court justice. If you were to be an originalist, like, are you just, you shouldn't be the Supreme Court justice then, because when if you are to interpret it at the time and place where the Constitution was written, like, you were technically considered property. Same with fucking women. Like, women were literally property. How is Amy Coney Barrett a textualist, but then also simultaneously turning around and being like, oh, but like as a female Supreme Court justice, like I'm gonna do real girl power on the on the SCOTUS. Like, how do you exist in that field? Like,
well, let's not forget how incompetent Democrats are here in that regard too, because wasn't there like a strategy memo that came out that Democrats didn't want to attack Amy Coney Barrett, like on they didn't want to attack her too hard, I think, in the hearings because she's a woman, and and they might get smeared as like sexist if they did that. And it's like, well, isn't like not taking her like substantively at heart inherently like being sexist too, though, because you're like not taking her serious as a woman? Like, what? It just seemed like really freaking stupid on the Democrats. And I thought it was like absolutely comical.
It's actually what the anti-SJW people used to say, the bigotry of low expectations.
Like literally, you're not taking her seriously. Then you're letting her identity, like, it's like identity politics 101 right there.
No, it's the funniest thing. Watching conservatives who used to rail on IdPol, like, so very clearly rely on it is one of the funnier things. I mean, of course, conservatives have always done identity politics. As a matter of fact, I would even go so far as to say they're better at identity politics than liberals are, because
they were drunk off that, the RNC, because, dude. You're called
no, that's not even what I'm talking about, though. That's what I'm talking about in contemporary conservatism, where you see like like black conservatives coming up to be like, Donald Trump's not racist. I've experienced racism as a black man, but it's all individual experiences, and racism is not systemic, kind of, that sort of thing. That's not even what I'm talking about, though. What I'm talking about is conservatives have always done identity politics. They've just done it for white, heteronormative patriarchy. That's the identity politics that was incredibly dominant for the longest time, and they've always done that. But now they're changing it while still advocating for exactly that. Now they're utilizing like black bodies and women and even gay people to a certain degree to be like, look, we can't be homophobic, despite the fact that we are significantly crippling like civil liberties afforded to the LGBT community because we have a gay person here. Like, and it's so transparent. It's so silly. I don't know. I think it'll backfire on them inevitably.
Well, while we're on this topic here, do we think Coney Barrett's going to get in? Like,
yes.
Like, I know the hearings are done now, right? Is that correct?
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah.
They're done. Yeah.
They're done. So now the next step is the Senate votes, correct?
Basically, yeah. Series of procedural votes to move her through the Senate. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a done deal, though.
Yeah, because I feel there's like, it's like, okay, polling is bad in a lot of areas for Republicans, from what I recall in the contested Senate races. If I recall correctly, I could be wrong on that, obviously. But and it's like during lame duck season, is that what it's called? Like, if the polling is to be indicative of like who's taking the general election here, it's like I don't really see Trump at that point being motivated to like then use COVID relief or using his power to like plea for COVID relief to actually happen. He's gonna be unmotivated to even do anything at that point, I feel. I just wonder here, like, where are we in that regard with COVID relief in the Senate? Like, is Mitch actually gonna do anything? Does Mitch care anymore? Like, I saw there was like a new proposition done, but like there's also memos here that like Mitch doesn't want to do anything with Nancy Pelosi now. So it's like, do we know where we are with that currently? Like, is anything gonna happen here between now and inauguration for COVID relief?
Doesn't seem like it.
Damn, dude, just blanket nothing. That sucks. That's not good. That's really terrible, actually.
No, it is quite terrible. And it's going to cost.
8 million people have slipped into poverty, right? And as a consequence of not receiving the second like cash infusion, that greatly improved the material condition of millions of Americans. And while I was somewhat critical of Bernie Sanders for playing a role in pushing for the original stimulus, but the $600 extra in unemployment and unemployment funds was huge. Like the $600 a week was huge.
Yeah.
It actually is one of the reasons why the economy recovered in the way that it did. It didn't fully recover,
Well,
obviously.
I think it's important to bring up here though, like it's that principle of like over asking, right? To like kind of like shift the Overton window a little bit there because Bernie was asking for $2K a month UBI for the entire duration of the pandemic being a national emergency and an unemployment buff. Ultimately, he got something. If he only asked for the unemployment buff, it'd been like, oh, no, fuck off, dude. You ain't getting nothing. It's way too expensive, quote unquote. But because he asked for like a shit ton of things, potentially here, you end up like, appeasing a little bit more of it, I would say.
Ryan, what were you going to say?
Oh, just that as the economy continues to deteriorate because of their inaction, and as more and more people get flipped into poverty and are struggling that much more, it then costs you exponentially more federal spending to get out of that hole again, and it's going to make the price tag look a lot bigger. If they would have been able to get $1 trillion or $2 trillion this time, then when Biden came in January, he could go for another $2 trillion. That's 4. I'm good at math. 2 + 2 is 4. Now, if he gets 0, Biden's going to have to push for 4. And people are going to say, whoa, $4 trillion. That's completely insane. Let's do something like 2. It's like, but wait a minute. We all agreed we needed 2 back in October, November. And we agreed that we would need another round when I came in, which would have been 4. But because we didn't do that 2, we actually need probably $5 trillion now to get back to where Democrats are going to need to be if they don't want to get wiped out in 2 years in the next midterms. And if people are going to actually be able to get back out of poverty and can actually survive as we're telling people to stay home and socially distance. So it is really setting Biden up for a trap if he goes way too low and when he comes back.
Isn't it the same dynamic, almost ironically the same dynamic as like literally not catching COVID early enough? If we were to have bunkered down early enough like Europe did, we wouldn't have had an extended like limbo phase where we're constantly like in and out of lockdowns or constantly talking about like how rigorous our lockdown measures should be. But we didn't do that. So now that's the reason why we're in the situation that we're in. And it's the same with this stimulus. Is the same with recovery that is an absolute necessity.
Right.
My fear is that like we win the Senate, okay, and the Democratic Party wins the Senate, Democratic Party wins the presidency, and then they still try to like weirdly concede to like Republicans and try to do that like Biden style middle of the ground, like middle of the road like centrism that they try to apply. If they do that, I will lose my mind. I don't know what I'll do.
I think people have to sort of price in that is absolutely what's going to happen, and that's the natural inclination of the Democratic Party. I think you have to understand is that is also up to us, right? It's up to left-wing organizers, people in activist communities, and whether they can actually pressure legislators to do the right thing on all of these issues. If we don't do that, then yes, they're going to concede to Republicans and nothing's going to get done. But there actually needs to be a mass effort, an organization getting people in Congress, the House and the Senate in the right place on these issues, just like we saw with the Sunrise Movement back when they put this Green New Deal at the center of climate policy, right? That sit-in at Nancy Pelosi's office that made that for the first time a real policy demand in Democratic politics. That's what we need to see on every single one of the issues people are pushing right now. And I worry that the left is going to be kind of complacent and they're going to say to themselves, well, now we're just going to see, watch TV and see what happens and wait until 2024 when we can elect somebody better. Like that's not, if we're serious about climate action, if we're serious about addressing coronavirus immediately, that can't be the stance. What you need to do is actually organize people to do as much as we can to push and to bully these people into doing the right thing. And 2024 is 4 years away. We have an intervening amount of time where we maybe can get people to the right place if we try hard enough.
I agree. It comes with messaging, definitely. We got to start with that, though. It's got to be a consistent message with a consistent goal.
And we're in the ground game. My gosh, come on, Democrats, get it together. Republicans The Republicans built the infrastructure for a 2020 victory, and had the coronavirus not happened and the George Floyd situation not happened, I think that things could be looking very different, as Hasan said.
Well, if we go further, actually, you know what's actually crazy here? Trump, in my opinion, could have won easily even if the pandemic hit, right? Even if the pandemic hit because of an inadequate preparation on the Trump administration's end, right? If things had got like, if the average working family had gotten competent relief in a very avoidable pandemic here, I think that would have been enough to like get people to say, oh, well, he was here for me whenever I needed help. You know, Trump bucks came in, you know, UBI happened because Republicans were voted on or whatever here. And people have been like, you know what? He was there for me when I needed help. Chinese virus was bad, but Trump helped me get over it. So get him again. But like, it's like so many incompetent things that happened simultaneously over the last like 9 months. It's just like, damn, dude.
If he would have been able to handle it, basically, or at least respond to adequately.
Yeah.
He would have had it. Yeah. It was just a disaster. Nothing short of a disaster. The worst things he could have possibly done. Hasan, you had that Frank Luntz thing up.
Oh yeah, I mean, take it with a grain of salt always.
I know, of course. Well,
he had a focus group. Do you guys want to hear the words he used to describe Donald Trump? Controlled, reserved, poised, con artist, surprisingly presidential. And the words that his control group or focus group used to describe Biden was vague, unspecific, elusive, defensive, grandfatherly.
Trump said his defense for windmills was that birds were going to get killed in them.
Remember when he said low expectations for Biden allowed him to secure support because when he cleared that low bar, it's the same for Donald Trump with being presidential. When Donald Trump is, for the past 4 years, behaving like an absolute maniac, when he is like less maniacal on stage, then people think he's presidential. And he was actually.
He was.
My pet peeve, my favorite term is a change in tone, a tonal shift, a change in tone. Media loves using that term. That's like the second term that they love using, like acting presidential.
The media knows they're going to get dunked on for using that term now, and so they're more reticent to. And I'm sure there were people watching, media folks watching it, being like, "Damn it, this really is a change in tone. Don't tweet change in tone. Don't tweet. I can't help it. New tone from Trump," and then they get ratioed, even though it actually was like you could see him like, Trump, don't do it, Trump, control yourself.
Well, yeah, because he's been getting burned so hard for just running his mouth and putting his own pit further. And I can't think of a better example than literally, what was it, 2 days ago when he, forget me, I don't remember where the rally was, but he did that rally where he entertained a hypothetical where he can call the CEO of ExxonMobil.
Yes.
Do you ever recall this one? He can call the CEO of ExxonMobil and he could raise $1 billion in a day if he wanted to. Chooses not to though, because you know he's for the people. Also donating his salary, which I have not seen verified yet. Moving on though. Yeah. You know, you want a regulation lifted, or you need like a permit for your whatever your project is, ExxonMobil. Yeah, sure. You know, just give me $25 million for my campaign. I could do that if I wanted to, but I don't. And then because they entertain a hypothetical in the middle of like the scathing New York Times tax release is just like, well, I mean, dude, do you do that? Are you bribing? Are you doing extortion? Like, is that? I don't know, man. You kind of sus right now, dude. And then ExxonMobil had to actually emergency PR tweet that convo never happened. That they don't routinely bribe for favors.
And it's like bragging about. It's like bragging about being able to commit an easy crime. It's like, that bowl goes past me in church and like it's filled with cash. And you know what? I can just put my hand right in it. I just stuff all that cash right in my pocket. I walk out of church, $55. I could do that, but I don't. It's like, what point are you even trying to make crazy.
Here? Look, I've said this a long time ago. I think America, like, Trump is perfect for Americans because like a lot of the Americans that love him are losers just like he is. They like love flexing and thinking about like that one time where they get to bang a cheerleader behind the bleachers and they were the fucking high school quarterback, you know what I mean? They went to state
Trump guy
finals. Like
shit, right?
Trump is that guy. Like he is running America like that guy. He's selfish. He's fucking greasy. He's disgusting.
Runs like a business.
And for some fucking weird reason, not some weird reason, because of white nativism and mask off racial agitation, he's been able to say, I'm greasy and I'm a sleazeball, but I'm your sleazeball. I'm just like you. You're fucking sleazy too. And if you had my kind of money, you would behave exactly like I would. So I think that he captures the attention of a lot of people that way, right? And that's why they get hyped up for the petty grievances that he like routinely talks about at his rallies. If you ever watch his rallies, he's like, half the time he's talking about like, Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize, but he didn't deserve it. But then I got nominated twice, and then no one fucking talked about it. And I even called Melania up, and I was like, oh, they're going to talk about it, right, Melania? And people are like fucking cheering, like, yeah, why weren't they talking about your Nobel Peace Prize? Like, dude, you assassinated a fucking, like, second in command of a foreign nation. Like, you like, what the
That
fuck
did happen
are you
in
talking
January.
about?
Damn, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like, you can't. Like, that's insane. The like, even if we don't even think about that, like, why the fuck does someone who like, I don't know, is recovering from like 2 fucking DUIs and lost their goddamn job and is like currently jobless and doesn't have any job prospects, like, why is that guy at your fucking rally cheering on the fact that that no one in the liberal media talked about your Nobel Peace Prize nomination? Like, what is this? But
And he told that story in Iowa. And he complained, remember, that and they were just talking about your floods instead, which I'm sure they were terrible, which it wasn't floods. It was a derecho, but whatever. And he did the same kind of like mockery in Erie, Pennsylvania this week. He went to Erie, Pennsylvania, and he's like, I never thought I'd be here again. But you know what? It's a tough race. I'm losing. So here I am in Erie, Pennsylvania. But I'm getting yelled at by my producer. I got to go finish this podcast. We got to finish the production and stuff.
all right.
So I got to run. But everybody should subscribe. It's called Deconstructed.
Yes,
it's quite good. And
It's a good podcast. You should.
Yeah.
It is.
Yo, link it in the Discord or link it in the link it somewhere, please.
See you
Check it
later,
out.
Ryan.
I will do that.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye,
Thank
bro.
you for
See you
coming
guys
on as
soon.
always. This is incredible. We're very fortunate to have you.
We'll see you for the 2024 debates.
See you there.
Yo.
Anyway, if anyone else wants to dip out, by the way, I'm totally fine with that. I don't want to keep you guys for any longer. Like it's all
No,
right.
actually, I made a